And a very good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to a Spiritualism Lyceum night, coming to you from the Paul Spiritualist Church down on the south coast of the UK. I know I say this every week, but I do because I love my guests. I seriously do. These wonderful people give up their time on a Saturday night when we could be, and especially in this weather, in a lovely beer garden somewhere. But they take this time out of their day to just talk, share information regarding to spiritualism. So we'll do ladies first. And we have the lovely Sandrah, Mitchel, Aetheris. Sandrah, good evening, my darling.
Good evening. Good evening, Craig.
Hello.
And good evening, everybody, wherever you are.
And the lovely Craig Morris as well.
Thank you very much. Evening, both. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So thank you for inviting me again.
Brilliant. It just came to my mind because I know both of you, but not together, if you see what I mean. Through your works here at Paul Church, and obviously through talking online and these friendships that we are now building in these new times. And I know you are both very prolific mediums. You really are out there, and you're really, sort of, if I say the phrase on top of your game, please, I'm not being detrimental there. You really have. Sandrah, you are out and about all the time. You're doing wonderful engagements. You're up at the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre in a little while. And any plans for touring as well with your mediumship?
I've done quite a lot of travelling before COVID and since. And I think I used to go back and forth to Spain a lot of the time. I've been to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and I've been to Duquesa and Gibraltar, which is my mum's homeland. I've been there to work. I'm planning to obviously go back to the Conan Doyle, and there's quite a few other places I'm planning to go to, hopefully to go back to Spain. Also, I go to Wales, the Hafner Coed, I go there. I just go where I'm. Oh, it's also America. I'm doing online at the moment with America, with Journey Within, and hopefully next year I'll be over there as well. So it's all exciting new things. I get very nervous about it. I don't know about you, Craig. It just builds up with me. I get quite nervous about new venues, new places, where we're going and everything. I mean, obviously, it's exciting for me, especially at my age. And I don't want to say how old I am, but I've brought 3 children up, and now they're all grown up. I'm a grandmother and everything. I can do exactly what I want to do. I can travel where I want to go. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. And Craig, sir, I know that you are got a little bit of an echo going on here. Oh, bear with me. Sorry, did I just expose my belly button? Don't know if this is going to improve and take away the echo. That's wonderful. Where was I? Craig, you are very prolific around the UK and in Europe as well. So just a wee bit about that.
Yeah. Again, very much like Sandrah, I just sort of go where opportunities come up, really, and just embrace it, to be fair. It's just for me, I just love it. It's a passion more than anything. But again, I absolutely do get nervous, and people often say to me whenever I do a den, I was in a beautiful theatre the other night, a couple of hundred people, and there were people there that asked me at the end of the night, do you not get nervous? I'm like, absolutely I do. And I think if I didn't get nervous, I would be a little worried, to be fair. So, for me, I suppose instead of saying nerves, I like to think of it as excitement when I get up there. So it's like, I know I'm getting in the energy, I'm ready to work, I'm ready to go for it, and I just love it. So not just the demonstration part, but I thoroughly enjoy the private readings. I love doing the teaching as well. This year, for the first time, teaching wise anyway, I've done Sweden a couple of times, but I got to go out there earlier this year, which was fabulous. I was out in Switzerland a few weeks ago, just up and down the country like a yo-yo, to be honest, but just enjoying it. That's what I'm doing. I'm just enjoying it, to be fair. So yeah.
Brilliant. just forgive me. We were just talking before we went on air tonight, and sometimes it can sound very glamorous, can't it? Oh, I'm off here, I'm off there, I'm doing this and doing that. But in a previous life, before I do what I do now, my job involved moving around a lot, and living out of a suitcase can be a little bit tiring, can it not?
Yes.
Somebody.
I mean, I do a lot of one-to-ones, and I find that can be very tiring because I take on too much, to be fair.
Yes.
I mean, it is what I do for a living, so it's like a full-time job. Even though it's very spiritual, I love it. You know, I love working with spirit. I love helping people, especially those that are really suffering. But say I went to the Conan Doyle, I should really take the next day off or the next few days off. But I'm usually booked in to work somewhere as soon as I get back. So I'm constantly on the go. I've got a couple of days break now, but I'm going home tomorrow, and then I've got readings in the evening connected to America. So it's a real constant on the go thing, and it can be very tiring, but it's also extremely enjoyable because you have the chance to meet lots of different people. And that's really good as well. And I love teaching as well. And I think we learn more from the students, you know, and it's really, really exciting stuff for me anyway. I find it really enjoyable.
Yeah. Sorry, we've got a little bit of dodgy sound tonight. I'm not quite sure where from. But anyway.
That was my granddaughter coming in the room. And she's leaving now.
Is she heavy breathing? But you picked up a couple of interesting points there, Sandrah, about, yes, it's true, as teachers, we do learn every time we teach. Hiya! We do pick up from those that we teach every time. Craig, to me, I only see your public persona.
She's left me in the dark. Oh no, she put it back on.
You seem very adept at balancing your time. You're out there, you're working, you're touring, but then you sort of like put out, okay, right, a few days off, put it down, and then come back to it.
I never used to be at all. Never used to be at all. And again, I can relate so much to what Sandrah's saying there about doing too much. And I have been there. And I've been very open and honest about this. When I wrote my book, I was like, do I put this in there or not? But a mate of mine, Steve Holbrook, he said, you know what, my advice is just put everything in. So I did. And the one thing I talked about was when I first started my mediumship, because again, very much like Sandrah, this is what I do, this is my living, this is my way of life. You know, I don't do anything else. And there was times where I never had a pot to pee in. You know, so, and the thing is that in the back of your mind, that's still there. And I quite like that in a way, the fact that you know, I'm like, never forget where you come from. Always, you know, that foundation of the people that first gave you the platform to work on, etc., and all that. But there were times, I remember when I lived in Torquay, I actually got a part-time job. And when I was looking, there was one point in a month where I think I would have had 3 days off, roughly, in 1 month, and that would have been my work in the office, my traveling with my mediumship, and then literally being at home. And I just thought, I can't do this because it'll kill me. It literally will kill me. And so now I have learned to say no to people. So I had somebody message me ages ago saying, "Oh, we've looked on your schedule online where your dates are on your website, and we've seen you've not got anything booked for this date. So could we book you, please?" I'm like, "No, unfortunately, you can't. My diary's full for this year now. There might be a couple of things I can do, but I'm like, I'm done. It'll be next year now, unfortunately." And they didn't seem to take too kindly to it. I'm like, but I can't make it happen. And I think it's one thing of trying to create a balance. And even now, I only said yesterday or 2 days ago to my mate, I think I'm starting to head back in that direction of doing too much. But you know, where one thing I've found, I don't know if for yourself, Sandrah, or not, but where I'm thinking to myself, oh blimey, there's too much here this month. All of a sudden, as I thought it, within a couple of days, something gets cancelled or something gets postponed and like moved to another date. I'm like, thank God for that. I'm so pleased that that's happened. But you know, we live and we learn, and I think it's just, and you know, it's probably the same for yourself as well, Sandrah. You don't want to let people down. So you
That's
feel
right.
you feel awful for saying no, but you do have to have a balance. You have to. So that's why the first thing, as soon as I get my new diary, the first thing I do is mark out when I'm having off, and that's it. Long weekends off with Wayne. I have all of August off usually, and then other little times through the year as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I've managed to find someone to organise my events, but I like to keep control of my one-to-one readings.
Yeah.
And it's like yesterday, someone rang up, or they text, and they were, I'm in pieces, you know, I need help. You know, I've just lost a loved one. I can't cope. And then you just feel that pressure, and you think to yourself, well, I haven't got space. I'm doing, you know, where can I put them? And then you manage to find a space, but then it takes a heavy toll on yourself, doesn't it? And it's like, when do you draw the line? When do you actually say to somebody, well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't fit you into, say, September. And they're saying, well, you've got to help me. You know, I need to talk to my dad, my mum. I need to. So it's not an emotional, it's emotional pressure on us as well. I feel bad, you know, because I've been through a lot of grief myself, and I think, oh my God, you know, I've got to try and feel that, you know, get them in that space. Yeah. So yeah, it's not easy.
I mean, of course, we have to have, you know, ourselves. You know, I always think to myself that we have to have a break ourselves, because if we don't, we need to recharge our batteries so as that we can be on form, you know, to help people. Because there's a quote that I nicked off of. Do you remember what Baywatch? Do you remember Baywatch with the Hoff? So I always remember watching that years ago, and I remember watching one episode, and I don't know why it stuck in my mind for so many years. And there was an episode where one of the lifeguards had been kidnapped, and the kidnapper said to the lifeguard, "Who guards the lifeguard's life when the lifeguard's life needs guarding?" And I sat there and I thought about it, and I thought about it in a different way, and I thought, well, with media, us as mediums, yes, we're there to help people, and yes, we do our best to be there for as many as we can. But if we're constantly on the go all of the time, because of course, again, as you know, Sandrah, it's not just the act of a private reading, a workshop, or a demonstration, but when you've got to travel up to wherever you're going, you know, if you've got to fly and all of that, you know, you do need some rest, because if you don't, you'll burn the candle at both ends, and you'll be no good to anybody, and you'll just, honestly, literally, it's no good. So you've got to, and you kind of have to take away that emotional pressure, but you're only human, aren't you, at the end of the day? So
it's a very fine balancing act. And funnily enough, it's picking up on an energy we've been speaking about on and off over about the last month, and in not only online but in person with a lot of mediums, and just saying, you know, we've got to be more mindful as mediums of our time. You know, when the phone rings and somebody says, "Oh, can you do this booking?" instead of just going, "Yes," which is what we do. "Oh, yes, yeah, I can do that. Can you do that?" "Yeah, I can do that." You know, "Can you climb up the post office tower outside?" "Yeah, no problem." You know, we do that as mediums. But I'd say to people, you know, maybe it's coming the time now where we actually need to start saying, "Well, do you know what? Leave that with me and I'll get back to you."
Absolutely.
And just have that thought about it. I appreciate fully what you're saying, Sandrah, especially when there is these crises in private sittings. But again, also, you know, we do have that duty of care, first and foremost, to ourselves. You know, on an aeroplane, when they drop the oxygen mask, what do they say? They don't say give it to the person next to you. They say put it on yourself and then give it to the person next to you. I know it is really difficult when you get that, when you know there's a need there, and I emphasize the word need because often people get in touch, oh, I want to read, and and you can almost hear it in the tone, can't you? Oh, I'm a bit bored today, so I want a reading. But then you have others playing, well, can I have a reading? And you just get it, you get it. But it is really important that, who is it? Reverend Ashley Oliver put a comment in a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, do you know what, love? That was a really good comment. She said, we were talking again about this similar subject, and she said, well, after 3 years of working non-stop since COVID, a lot of mediums are now facing this time of burnout unless they start looking after themselves. Mm. And I thought, yeah, it's true, because the advent of this online, which is marvelous in some respects, we wouldn't have these discussions. I've done 2 services this week from the comfort of my living room, which has been absolutely bliss. But there is also then this burgeoning, well, you're free. And like you say, Craig, I like that. And I'm sure, I know, Sandrah, through conversations I've had with you, that sometimes those who are after our services maybe come at it slightly wrong energy. Not, would you like to come to work for us for spirit? Is right, I've got an empty space here and you've got to do it. And you're like, no, I haven't. And you just think, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? But it's really interesting hearing, because as I say, you both travel a lot with your work. You're both very giving people. You're both very prolific and very competent mediums. And I say that because I mean it. So, yeah, the demand is there, but it's just striking that balance, because we've got home life as well to work into this equation. Sandrah, I know that you're currently in Wales with the family for a family celebration, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So sorry, Jay.
No, you carry on. Go on.
How often can you just sort of like say, right, stop everything, I'm going to see family?
Well, I always see the family, actually, because I've got a son and I've got a new granddaughter sort of like 15 minutes away from me. And I see them every 2 days, just jump in the car when I've got a spare couple of hours and go and see them. Or they're around my house all the time. But it's harder for myself with my daughter in Wales because it's about a 4-hour drive. But she's very good. She comes to see me in all the half terms. I mean, she works with me as well, so I get to see her and I get to see the kids as well. So I'm very lucky with that. She does make the effort and travel to come and see me, and I go and see her. So it's good.
Excellent. I'm pleased to hear that you are getting that work-life balance. It's so important that we do that as mediums. Craig, similar question to you. I know that you work your diary very much with your husband in mind. And I know myself, we were talking about a date and you went, no, can't do that. It's Wayne and I's anniversary.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm stunned because as far as I can see, us men and dates are really not good.
No. The thing is, when it comes to it, Wayne, with what Wayne does for a living, he's a bus driver. So he gets a long weekend off every 5 weeks. So what I've done is I've gone through the diary and all the way through for next year as well now. So I've marked off all those long weekends. So I've got them off. So it's kind of the opportunity where, yes, we can go away and, on his annual holidays that he has off as well, which are also in the diary. So I always do that. But, the thing is, we've kind of got it down. We were just saying to our neighbours earlier on, because we're planning something for my birthday in August, but we've got to do it now. So, that's all in the pipeline. That's all being planned. But there are people. So I mentioned Steve earlier on, Steve Albrook, him and his partner and manager, Rob, very good friends. But we've planned to meet them and get together, but it's not till November, because of how our diaries are working. And it is important to have that balance of family life and everything. So when I hear with Sandrah saying about where she gets to see her family quite a lot, for me that's just music to my ears. That is, to have that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. We have a comment here. Lovely Tim Abbott. Good evening, Tim.
Evening, Tim.
He's just saying, when I first went public as a medium, an old minister told me, now you have to learn your greatest lesson, and that is how to say no. We do tend to look at these things as modern day issues, don't we? But actually, no, these things have been running in our movement for forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forever. They may be new to us to manage, but they've always been there. There's always been that heightened demand. There's always been that, misunderstanding of what's being asked of us. Can you come do my Sunday service? Yeah, but it's like a 4-hour drive there, a 4-hour drive back. It's 2 hours while I'm there. I've got to be up at 5 o'clock the following morning. It's not. But from the requestee's point of view, it's just sort of like, I want you to do Sunday service. Why can't you say yes to that? It can be very frustrating at times.
Well, with what Tim's saying, though, I completely agree. There's a wonderful medium in Stafford who Tim also knows as well, mutual friend, a lovely lady called Linda Bennett, and I remember watching Linda for the very first time at Stafford Church, and didn't know what it was, just everything like her, because it was a service, a divine service, and just listening to her. And I remember doing a workshop with her just a few years ago, in case on the off chance she's watching. And I remember her saying, what you've got to do, what you've got to remember, is you've got to learn to say no. Because I say it now. And we worked together. We did the open day. We did a demonstration together. Linda and I did at Stafford Spiritualist Church's open day. And back then, I think it was the Arthur Finley Centre at the time, rather than the Barbanel. And we were having the conversation there again. She goes, "How are you finding it?" And I told her. She goes, "It's hard to say no, isn't it?" I went, "Absolutely, it is difficult, and that's why it is." That emotional pressure that Sandrah mentioned earlier as well.
Yeah. Sandrah, because you're working with the Journey Within in America.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's holding workshops and taking services over there.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you find the difference between like the English congregation and sitters and the Americans, or is there a difference?
I had a total shock the first time I did the demonstration, because I have done a few Zoom events like Sunday services and Evenings of Clairvoyance, but I expected it not to be much different. But I sat down and the chairperson came on, lovely lady, and I could see these numbers at the bottom of the screen just building up and building up. And I was looking and she said, "We'll be starting in a minute." I said, "Well, where is everybody?" She says, "Well, you don't get to see them. They can see you, but you can't see them." So what I had to do is work blind and build up the energy beside me and throw the information out. We'll give the information out. And luckily, there was only 2 people that actually put their hand up. But the chairperson was watching and controlling all that side of it. And she said, "Well, Sandrah, we've got 2 people putting their hand up. Would you like to give out a little bit more information?" Which I did. And then all of a sudden they come up, but you can't see their face. You just hear their voice. But they are very, very friendly, very, very easygoing, and very easy to work with.
Okay.
I mean, it's more or less the same as this side of the English. There's no difference really. I think they're quite easygoing as well. I'm not saying the English aren't, but I'm just saying they're quite easygoing.
Yeah, because I've found with my mediumship that when you're working now more and more with people from other countries, we're getting different levels of evidence come through, which sometimes to us is sort of like, I don't know what I'm seeing here, but it's a so-and-so. And somebody goes, "Oh yeah, I know that." I had a lovely one, a gentleman, you won't mind me saying his name, Frederick. and he was doing a dem online. And as part of the evidence, he was saying about this gentleman going to the summer house with his suitcase and not coming back. Well, it was an English congregation. Of course, people sat there going, what? I knew what he meant. In the Nordic countries, they have what they call a summer house, which is exactly that. It is a house that they go to for the summer months to get the sun. But of course, the UK market, summer house, is, you know, a shed down the bottom of the garden. So people were sort of like querying, why would somebody go to the bottom of the garden with a suitcase full of food and not come back? So yeah, we do get these slight nuances. I know Lola, lovely Lola Keaton, she was describing a house to somebody and she went, I have never seen a house like this where you walk in the door off the street and you're in the lounge. There is no hall. She said, what is this all about? I have never seen that. So I just wondered there if we see that difference with our European friends and on some of the standards of mediumship and some of the standards of evidence that we get through may not make the biggest impression on us, or vice versa. We may get this amazing thing and they're going, I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. Because Craig out in Switzerland and further with your training, would you be working through an interpreter, or is the understanding of English that good out there?
In Sweden, there's no interpreter because they've got a very good standard of English there. But I do work with another Swedish medium, so if there is anything that needs to be translated, she can do it. In Switzerland, the place where I teach in Neuchâtel, where Tim teaches as well, there we do have a translator for the weekend. So just because and to be honest, I mean, I found, certainly from my perspective, when I've been out there, you know, many of the students do have a good standard of English. It's just that a few of them are because some of them obviously coming from France and across the border for the workshop, so they are I say very French. That sounds like, I don't mean it in that sense, you know what I mean, like that. It's just easier for it to be in French for them. So that's the case there. But as regards to like working, you know, when it comes to sittings, only thing I find is, again, as Sandrah says, they're you know, they are, you know, lovely and just, I say easy, but just natural to work with. But one thing I always find is that a lot of them, certainly when I've done sittings out in Switzerland, is that a lot of them want readings more about them. So they want like what's the word I'm after? It's like a
spiritual assessment.
That's the one. Yeah, that's what a lot of them like out there. But you know, I'm very honest. I always say, well, this is how I work. Your loved ones will pop in. I'm sure they'll inspire me and all of that. So,
Are you finding that as well, Sandrah, with these sittings?
It depends whether I'm working in a church or a centre or I'm working on a one-to-one. On a one-to-one, I give a choice. If it's usually for an hour, and I say to them, would you like me to work with spirit, or would you like me to work on a psychic level, or would you like me to work with cards? I can do all three for you. So I usually offer 3 different things that I can work with. So obviously, it's very difficult when you're constantly working with spirit not to bring spirit into it. So I combine it together when I'm working on a one-to-one. I say, I've got, say, Uncle Sam here, you know, blah, 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 blah. And maybe in my mind, I'm going to see something psychic. So I go from spirit to psychic to spirit to psychic, which I ask first, if that's okay. And then I may at the end say, would you like a few oracle cards? And that's how I work on a one-to-ones.
Okay. But I was just wondering if you're seeing more and more that people are picked up again on my private sittings, because I just need to get back in the loop, because so much time is spent running the church, I've neglected my development. But I'm finding now that people, you know, they've had the evidence. They know that mum, dad, Uncle Bert, Uncle Charlie, whoever is around them. And especially in this day and age, people want to know more about, I'm not talking fortune telling, but they want to know a bit more about themselves, stuff going on, how the work situation is.
Yeah, that's right. That's part of the psychic side I do. And also you read the aura and you see the spiritual development as well. You can bring, that usually happens as well, and spirit are included in that. Psychic is just to do with how they're feeling, you know, how their relationships are doing, if they're going to change job situations, if, you know, they're going to go to uni, you know, or they're moving, or they're going to meet a new partner, or you can get more in depth. But that's more the psychic side. So I do that more or less sort of every day when I do my one-to-one readings. So it's nice to be able to offer a combination of things, and it keeps it uplifted, it keeps the energy going, and it's more interesting for them and me.
All right.
Because you can only do so much of spirit, can't you, really, sometimes? And then it's good to bring in the psychic and a few cards.
Well, this is it. We are seeing now that, all right, we still get new people day in, day out coming into our churches looking for the evidence. But I'm a very great believer that this evidence is given time and time again in churches, centres and sittings, to the point of, you know, it's a bit like the world's longest running court case. You've had so much evidence, when you're actually going to reach a verdict, that, yeah, life does go on. But then what?
Sorry, can I answer that?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. What I usually do so that doesn't happen is that I ask Spirit to bring something completely different in for them, different information, so that we go down a slightly different path of evidence. But I try to combine the evidence with what's going on with their life so that it opens things up a little bit more for them. And it's more interesting for them, as I was saying, and me as well. So it's thinking outside the box, asking Spirit to bring things that are different in, you know, not the most like I have Uncle Sam here, he passed with, you know, that sort of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, that's lovely. But when somebody's been for a few readings, they want something different. That's what they expect, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's just trying to sort of keep on trend with things, and I don't mean from the public's point of view, I mean from our own developmental point of view. And as I say, certainly now people are more into, well, as again, not fortune telling, but what is my potential? Where can my paths lead? What is possibilities for me as a person? Which, yeah, totally understandable. Keith Morn, going back to an earlier point, if you advertise and promote yourself, you become public property, and it's much harder to say no. Do you feel this is true?
Okay, can I go first, Craig? Sorry.
No, Jeffrey.
No, I'll go for it. I'll go for that one. I advertise my workshops. I advertise my church events that are coming up, because it's not only for me, it's for the church and the centre as well, because they both are being advertised. But when it comes to my one-to-ones, I don't advertise. I work on word of mouth. So that's what happens. And I have built up a clientele, and I am very busy, and I try to say no. I do sometimes say no, to be honest. But if I can fit them in, I will. And I do make my spare time, you know, for myself and my family. So, you know, it's difficult to keep the balance, isn't it? I mean, with any job you got, it's difficult to keep the balance.
What's your thought?
I personally, I think I get that point absolutely that Keith's making, because, you know, people seem to think that, you know, you're offering, you know, some people will say a service, if you like, you know. At the end of the day, you know, we have to remember as well that, okay, yeah, we're there for people, absolutely, but, you know, just like doctors and nurses, police officers, firefighters, they all have to have a break. They all have to have time off and time with their family and friends, and it's no different for us at the end of the day. And when people, I know on my mobile, I mean, when it comes to private readings, to be honest, most of the time they're all through the website anyway. And there's a couple of ladies, Claire and Julie, who deal with all of that for me. I don't need to. So that's all good. And generally, I'll go through my diary, and if I've written day off in my diary, it's a day off, and I'm having nothing. I won't do anything, so I kind of stick to my guns. But I mean, I don't see myself as I wouldn't label myself as the public's property. I just label myself as a medium that's helping as many people as I possibly can.
That's right.
That's it. That's what I do. It's what I enjoy. And I think there comes a point where when people have the mindset that, oh, I can call you anytime, day or night. No, you can't. No, you. And now I remember a few years ago, I was. When I toured with Colin, sometimes the day or two before I'd go and pick him up and we'd go off, I would go and stay at my friend's house in Harlow, and I was there, and I'd arrived there. I think it's got to have been 11, half 11 at night. So we're there, we're having a quick brandy, and then I got a phone call, and this lady said, "Can I book a private reading, please?" And this was the days before people did it for me, and I just said, "Well, you can do." I said, "But not right now, you can't now." I said, "Call me back tomorrow, anytime after 10 o'clock, I'll have my diary there." Never heard from her. And from that point, my phone now goes on divert after 6 o'clock. So the only people that can actually get through to me are people that are on my favourites list on my phone, and that's it. So I that's another way that I have discipline in having and managing my own time as well. So yeah,
good word, disciplines. We do need that discipline in our mediumship. We not only need it in the way that we conduct ourselves and we handle our time, but it also applies to our standard of mediumship. Now, I'm saying this because I've seen you both work, and your standard is extremely good, which shows that you have got that disciplined approach. You have got. And I know you're both open to expanding upon your mediumship as where it is today, that tomorrow is another day and it could change. It could be better, which is a really healthy attitude. And again, this comes in from a couple of weeks ago where we were talking and saying that sometimes we see this with the standard of mediumship, not going down per se, but not going up either. You know, and people go, well, I'm getting bookings, that's it, I'm a medium. So I don't need to sit in circle, I don't need to do this, I don't need to progress myself. How do you two manage your own self-progression with such a busy schedule?
See, years ago, can I? I've just started there. Can I go first on that one? Is that all right? See, years ago, when I used to sit in circle, our tutor always used to say to us, "Right, you're Jeanette Abbott, fantastic medium." She, would sit there, and if we missed, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks on the trot, you're out of the circle. Unless it's for good reason, so again, there was discipline. You had to be there. It was that simple. And then we would then get taken out onto the rostrum, and we'd work together and all of that sort of thing. So we'd be given those opportunities. So that I think always puts you in good stead when you've had good teaching as well there. But I think, when it comes to progression, I think it's a matter of living life, if I'm completely honest. I mean, you can read all the books in the world, you can read as many other medium books as you like to gain knowledge from their experience, absolutely. You can listen to inspirational talkers, but go out and live life. And it's little things. Just the other day, I did a private reading for a couple of ladies, and the one lady, I was working with her, and I said to her, I saw Royal Sutton Coldfield, so a town in the West Midlands, and I said, would you understand where Sutton Coldfield would have an importance to the gentleman that was coming through anyway? Because I wasn't getting why. I just got that. Well, that was where he was when he passed away. I was like, okay, but I knew there was something else. It's almost like an Aldi checkout for me when I work. I'll get it, I've got to give it, and then it's bagged up and it's done. But there was this Royal, and then all of a sudden, I just saw my friend in my mind. I went, would you know somebody then? I said, there must be a link here or a memory of somebody who has I said, but your granddad's, I think it was a granddad. I said, your granddad's laughing about it. I said, somebody who was bought a title for them, like something like Lord. And she went, yeah. And I don't know if it was her brother or something. I said, and that, all of a sudden I got Royal Sutton Coldfield because it was the place her granddad passed away, but the royal bit because her another loved one that's still very much here was that a lord. He had that bought for him for a birthday present. So I think it's just being aware of what's going on in the world, really. Certainly for me anyway, that's kind of how it works for me.
Yeah. Sandrah, my darling.
I didn't go to any circles or anything when I first started. Obviously, I didn't have any tutors, any teachers to step in and help me or anything like that. I started off, obviously, as a kid, I was aware of spirit and everything. And then it's okay being aware, but you have to develop it. And it's like almost like building a toolbox. You put all them parts and bits that you've learned and you've experienced, and you hold on to them. And it's like a vocabulary, really, from the spirit world. They'll bring that in any time that you need it. So as time went on, I had a really good link with my guides who would tell me what to do, and they'd help me, and they'd always tell me to work from the heart. To them, that was the most important thing, with empathy and love. So I always stood with that was one of the most important things. And each client, each experience I had, I'd sit at home on my own because my guides told me to sit on my own. And that was when I met my higher self, my soul, whatever you want to call it. And I always remember saying, thank you, my guides. I was a good girl then, Laurie. I was, I said, thank you, my guides. And they said, I heard a voice come back to me and say, I'm not your guide, I'm your higher self. And I thought, ooh, what's your higher self? And that was how things continued. I'd have to explore and learn by myself, and naturally from my guides and my higher self. So that's how I've always moved forward. And with each sitting, or call it reading, whatever you do, I learn something new all the time. I really do learn, and I expand all the time. I do get the occasional time when I'll sit down and I'll speak to them, or they say to me when they can catch me, we need to talk to you. So I'll sit down and I'll talk to them. But I learn through teaching my students as well. I learn so much, and that's how I expand. I look into their auras, I see how they're linking in, and it teaches me different things. And it's just a progression, really. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, I've always got new ideas in my head, what I want to do, and so I just keep moving forward with it. And I love it. And I set my intention as well. I say, I want, good communication here, please. And that's how I do it. That's how I do it. But I did have a meeting with Glenn Edwards one day because I was getting woken up at night seeing scenes and different things constantly. I didn't have a clue what it was. This was many, many years ago. And so out of the blue, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Stansted College. I'm going to see what goes on there. I need someone to help me. So I booked in a sit-in with Glenn Edwards, and he explained everything to me where I could understand it. I needed him at that point, and then from then on, I was on my own again, and that's how I've been, really.
Interesting.
There's just one thing there, if I can, where you mentioned there, Sandrah, about the intentions before you do a sitting or a dem and even a workshop, and I like that. And I remember a few years ago, this was before I met Wayne, so I bet we're going back at least 10 years. I was on the motorway and I was driving up to a Burslem Spiritualist church up in Stoke-on-Trent. Wonderful church, lovely people. And I remember saying to the spirit world, right, when you come through tonight, I want to know who you are, relationship. I want to know how you passed, and like I said, the relationship as well. I said, if you can, take me where you need me to be in the room as well. And I remember starting, the very first link I got was a gentleman who stepped in, and he was Dad. His name was Alan, for example, and he died of a heart attack on the front path whilst he was putting the bins out. And I said, and like I put it out there, and one man's hand put his hand up because that's my dad. Because that's his name, and that's exactly how he passed. And it went like that all night, and it got me thinking. afterwards. It's like, actually, and this is what I always say to my students when I teach, and I'm like, it's not the spirit world that are not going to turn up. Why would the spirit world not turn up to talk to their loved ones? That's us. That's us getting in the middle. You know, you've got the communicator here, you've got your sitter here. You're the one that's just got to listen. But once you start thinking about it, you're then diluting that link and that evidence. You might as well just say, stop, I can't do this, I'm sorry. And I learned from that night that actually, do you know what, when we put our mind to it, there are no limits. Why, you know, it's just brilliant. And that all comes down to that word that Sandra's just said, intention. I love it.
And also I find the more I do it, because I'm not just saying this, I'm very, very busy with the one-to-ones. It's like if I do a sit-in and I'll have all the rest of the day's family in that room, they're waiting. It's so real. They're waiting, and I can sense them in the corner of the rooms, and they're just standing there waiting for their loved one to come through the door. It's amazing. That's what keeps me going, actually. If I didn't have that, I'd get bored, I think. Sorry, sounds terrible. I have to have the excitement of it all as well. And that's what keeps me, the learning, the excitement and the wow of it all.
Yeah.
And the realization that, you know, what happens to us, well, we don't pass, do we? We just walk into another room, really. So that keeps me going as well and keeps my enthusiasm there for learning constantly. So yeah, and I find it very difficult. No, I don't find it difficult because it really has nothing to do with me. When you have sort of rules and regulations when you're working with spirit, and you know, you're telling spirit really how to behave and really how to communicate. And I don't think it's our business to do that. I think we should allow them to come through naturally, and everything, the whole process to happen naturally, rather than saying you have to do this or you have to do that, and be an individual as well, because spirit world are all individuals and we're individuals. So we should expect them to come through how they were when they were living. Not, you can't say this or you can't do that. Obviously, we have a filter. You know, obviously, you know, I said the twat word the other time, but you know, to me that's not swearing. You know, that's my own personal. So I'm winding you up, Lawrence. I just want to say again.
I'm not editing again.
I agree with that, though. I agree.
But it's filtering. It's all filtering. It's you know, they're trying to communicate. And why should we have to stand there and say they're this, they're that, they're that? And they have so much more to say. They have so much more to bring through. I mean, I sort of, you know, the other day, this lady come through. Her father had died, I think, 3 days before. And the first message that come through to me was, I don't want an autopsy. Now, who am I to filter that and stop it? You really, I know everyone's going, oh, did she say that? Should she have said it? But I tell you something, and this is the God's honest truth, within, 10 minutes of that reading, the lady ran up and asked her if it was okay, if she wanted an autopsy for her father. She didn't have to go through with it, but she had her answer. So it's when we filter it, or when we stop it, when we contain it, I don't think we allow them to come through properly, or, you know, the real them come through.
They have to be able to express themselves.
That's right. That's right.
The whole point of mediumship. And I always say, when I do a demonstration or a sitting, whatever it may be, I always say, listen, if you've got a grandmother in the spirit world who's a bit like Mrs. Brown at Mrs. Brown's Boys, that's how she's going to come through. If you've got a granddad who's a bit like Del Boy, that's how he's going to come through. Then all of a sudden, you know, if you've got, I had somebody who came through the other night, who I say the other night, a little while ago now, but he was a murderer, you know, and at the end of the day, he still had, you know, just because of what he did in life, he still had the opportunity to convey, you know, communicate with his loved ones on this side. But I always say, listen, you know, they're going to come through exactly the same, and if they weren't so nice on this side of life, don't expect them to change on that side of life. They don't go a halo. They are still the same people.
But don't you think they've passed over, or they've gone to the other side? They have a better understanding. They must do. So
why wouldn't
they see life differently, because they understand, because I mean, they're in another dimension, they're in the spirit world. So to me, don't you think their characters would improve because they have a little bit of a better
We lost her.
Yeah.
I think I would absolutely agree with what she's saying there. Just while we wait for her to come back, I would absolutely agree that they probably do have a better understanding, and that they have awareness of what.
Sorry, darling, we lost you there for
a second. Then
all right, it's all right. Don't worry.
Now, what was you saying? Because I think you were going to make a valid point. Then
I've lost the plot.
About,
What was I saying? I forgot.
That's a normal day
age.
for experience. But yeah, I think they. I think what you were saying.
No, I remember now. This is what I question myself, and I don't know if anybody else does. People say that they are more or less the same. I agree with you, but there must be a point where they've gone to another dimension and they're experiencing and feeling things different, and they have a better understanding of life and why we're here. So surely there'll be an improved version of themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that, and again, I'm well, Laurie, obviously you work the platform as well, so I think it's fair to say that all three of us would have had this. But when you're on the platform and you're delivering a message to somebody here from somebody in the spirit world, and you've got a loved one or somebody, and I'm saying this because again, this did happen to me the other night, where somebody came through, a gentleman from the spirit world who was a little bit physical, shall we say, on this side of life, and I know that a part of his message, not just because of that, but of other things, he was coming through with an apology, but I was expressing it to her. I said, I don't get the feeling that he would actually say that, like, if he was here. And she went, he absolutely wouldn't. No. I said, but I know that I'm aware of him wanting to deliver that now, because he puts into my mind that I know I should have said it whilst I was here, and I'm sorry that I didn't, but I'm here to say it now, and that's the message. And and I think it goes back to that point there where you have to allow them to express their personality, but still allow them to deliver that message. So yeah.
Lovely Tim Abbott here sums up perfectly what was in my head. And he's saying, I think when somebody goes to the spirit world, have the opportunity to develop a better understanding. However, they still have to present themselves as the client remembers them for their validation.
That's right.
Because if you had a partner who was horrible to you, and they say, I've got a lovely gentleman here, and you'd be thinking, really? Well, it ain't mine.
Yeah.
But we can, in the process of delivering that message, we can get that identification, but then we feel the shift in them when they start talking. You just feel that shift in the energy, and you go, oh, okay. But they're talking now about, these things that happened at the time, whatever reason, blah, 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 blah. However, now they are saying, maybe I could have done that a little bit better. Maybe I could have done whatever. I'm really hoping this is a typo. Would they, both of you, say grounding, and I'm sure that should say meditation, not medication, is key to keeping our focus?
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Go for it. You go first. Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I don't think it's what I think. We're all individuals, and we all have our own way of working and understanding of what it's what goes with us. I personally don't ground. I personally don't meditate. I send my thoughts out, and I just bring the light downwards, and I take it and I expand it, and then I sense my guides with me, and then I'm ready, and then I know it's time. No, I don't think I've ever grounded. I don't think it's something that I make a point of.
I mean, I do meditate, but I don't meditate all the time. I don't meditate every day or every week. If I feel the need, like if I'm at home or I'm doing whatever, I think, actually, I just feel the need just to go and sit. So I'll go and sit, meditate. But when I'm teaching, what I do, I do set a meditation before I start a day of teaching. Because what it does is it helps the student, obviously, to create a clear mind, ready to set their intentions in that moment, ready for the day ahead. And also, what it does is it gives them that should we say, awareness of, before they work, they just go into that quietness, set those intentions, and they're ready to go. But no, I mean, when I hear of mediums, again, we're all in, we've all got our own thought process on the way that we work. At the end of the day, I just think as long as our intentions are right and the end result is the same, who it doesn't matter in a way. But I'm not somebody who has to sit there or does sit there and open the chakras from top to bottom and all the way back up again. For me, that's just time and energy that's a waste. That's me personally. I don't do that. I don't open myself up before every demo. Don't close myself down. That's what the intentions are for. So once I finish the demonstration or a sitting, I literally put up a thanks and say thank you to the spirit world, and then I'm done. That's it. I'm done. Out of office is on, doors closed, and close sign is up. So
yeah, I agree. I think in the beginning we are taught this opening up and closing down. And sometimes I was taught once to close down by imagining you're in a sleeping bag and you pull it all the way up over your head. I would freak out if you did that to me. I would seriously, I could not I had a top once that got stuck on the head. Seriously, I'm running around looking for a knife to cut it off because I was just going crazy in there. But I think we do, don't we? The spirit world, our world, the two do become one, and we can just sit there and just something would be on the telly and somebody would just say something funny, and you're like, oh, okay, that's quite good, I quite like that, thank you. It just comes in with practice and discipline again. Craig, you're being put on the spot by one of your ex-tutors. Tim Abbott is saying, can you ask Craig a question? I know you to be very successful and busy medium these days, but are there any areas of mediumship that you would love to explore? For example, healing or a chance for physical, that your success and busyness stops you pursuing that line? And Sandrah, the same question to you as well after.
Me personally, I'm wanting to explore, and I've kind of started, but I'm wanting to explore trance. In complete honesty, there's one or two people that I know that will say, "Oh, what do you want to do that for?" It's a load of old songs. But for me, I love it, and Tim obviously he's a wonderful trance medium as well, and I've had a few trance sittings from Tim, and I've watched other mediums do trance, and there's a lady, I've never met her, but there's a lovely lady who I watch online as well every so often, Elaine Thorpe. And I think her trance I've got to say, is remarkable. So that's where I think I'd like to go as well there, because I think, in a way, it goes back to what Sandrah was saying as well earlier on with her sittings. She'll do the mediumship, she'll do the psychic, the oracle, all of that. And I think it's good to have different things. It gives you different areas to work in. It gives you different what's the word I'm after? Different experience. That's the word, experience. And you know what? I think really, let's face it, all forms of mediumship really, as well, we're just looking at the healing part there, all forms of mediumship really are healing. But I wouldn't mind looking at that either, healing. But certainly I think the next stop for me will be trance.
Brilliant. Sandrah.
Exactly the same. I was just talking to a friend and we're organising meeting up once a month in a house. It's not a church, and we're going to meet up together to just practice and sit for trance. But I am drawn to trance healing because that's what I first started off with, is healing. So it's just, you're right what you say, it's getting the time to fit it all in. But when I do my one-to-ones, I do ask for healing for the client as well. At the same time, so there's that goes on as well, but I don't actually put my hands on or anything. But it's right, it's finding the time for it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. And nice to hear you talk about a home circle there, because I have a thing for home circles. We had a trip just recently to a place called the White Eagle Lodge in Lyceum in Hampshire. And it is the most amazing experience when you go there. It's not only an astounding building and beautiful grounds, etc. It's the feel of the place. And I was saying to people on the bus on the way back, trying to get this inspiration over. All this came about because 6 people dedicated time to sitting in circle, to start channeling the works of White Eagle, to build up the White Eagle Foundation, which then manifested into this physical. And seriously, it is an amazing place, absolutely brilliant. I think home circles have been neglected for far too long in our movement, and I'm all very big advocate of encouraging people to set up home circles, because seriously, that was the birthplace of our movement. It wasn't in workshops, it wasn't in churches and centres, because they weren't there right at the beginning. It was in the home circles. Anyway, thank you both so much. It's a beautiful evening. It's a Saturday evening, and I know I'm keeping you from a glass of something. I do apologise. See, look, they didn't deny it, did they?
Always be honest. It's what I always say. Always be honest. I'm going to be having a gin and tonic shortly.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. Craig, as things have evolved, you are here at Paul Church doing a dem on the 30th now of this month in the evening.
I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having you back. Lovely Sandrah, you are with us in October.
Yes.
And doing a dem with Frederick Hagland from
Yes.
Sweden, who is over taking a course for us. So I can't wait to have you both back in my physical company. Virtual company is lovely, but physical company is all the better. Have a brilliant time. You know, if you want to share in your websites onto the chat column, please do. Because remember, it's not only the lovely people who have joined us all this evening, and thank you one and all, it's also the people who watch these things on catch up as well. So big warm welcome to our friends in Denmark through the lovely stewardship of Jack and Lola. We now share these Lyceum nights all over Denmark as well through various organisations. So it's bringing together that spiritual family just to have this time of chat, conversation, knowledge, hopefully go away thinking, I like that. I like that from a talk. I want to go away thinking, not sure about that, or I like that, or whatever. Anyway, have a beautiful evening. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your input. It's been absolutely wonderful. And the first glass, I raise you one here at Paul and say cheers.
Pleasure.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Good night, everybody.
No.